Okay, we should be going live now. Cool. There we go. Oh, okay.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing well. Now the two of us. Cool. Yes. So
Perfect.
this thing works. Well, it's a restream platform. Okay, nothing too weird about it. We can also share information or share screens and all of those things. Um, and it's going live into the YouTube space. If we then gather some questions, uh, I will bring them up. And first of all, Happy New Year. Okay,
Happy New Year. Yeah.
uh, and I wanted to start with, I think, the biggest question of all: why didn't France won the cup?
That
Think,
was pretty close. That was a pretty good World Cup, I gotta say. But that's what happens. It's okay. Next time.
uh, do you still watch? I'll tell you where this is leading. Okay, so that do you still watch soccer the same way, or do you still call it football, or is it no longer ingrained in you as an European?
No, I never actually watched it much. Even when I was in France, I'm a disgrace. I'm probably the only French guy that never watched much of it. My dad is a big fan, so he watched for the both of us. So.
Because you had, man, there is something really. The reason is this: as I was looking into the France football team, soccer team, these guys have been there more than once.
Oh yeah.
They've France in soccer tastes excellence, and they didn't do it this year. They'll do it in 4 years' time. Different from Portugal, for example, where we are always trying to get there. But what do you see when you start managing teams that, in a way, they've always been there at that level? For example, at your time at the DoD, and then you need to manage teams or help people that need to get there. I'm not saying that being there is a bad thing, but I didn't. I might be wrong, okay, but except from Mbappe, I didn't see the same grit that you would see, for example, from Morocco players that really wanted to
Right.
to change this. And as I was looking into your work, like you have the, I call it the village Nick. You could call it a city, but that reveals grit. Okay, you are working on a certain direction and to build things. But so, what do you think are the, from your new life, what is the biggest difference to infuse grit on people?
Well, you can also tell the complacency, right, gets to people, right? When you're used to winning or you're used to be the leader in something, it's very tough, right? Because you get always used to that, and you don't realize that others might be more, hungry. It's actually interesting because I sold 12 companies. I don't really need to work anymore, right? And it was tough for me leaving the government because the passion, right, and the mission was so exciting. It was kind of the most challenging but also and frustrating, but at the same time the most exciting time of my life. But at the same time, right, you look back and you realize that when you come out, I had a tough time getting excited about anything again because I don't really need to be, creating a new company, so effectively I was myself complacent, and sometimes it's okay as a person to be complacent, but when you have a group or a team or a company or a country, or an organization like DoD that's becoming complacent, that's a problem because now you're still in a world of competition, whether or not you realize it, and people are not waiting for you to figure it out and wake up. So that's kind of what you've been saying for the last 20 years with China. They've been leading, at taking over many of the key fields, quantum compute, AI, machine learning, cybersecurity. They are really innovate, particularly because they are able to force, of course, the companies to do business with the government. Meanwhile, most U.S. companies refuse to engage with DoD. Talking about ethics all day, but they fail to realize that we have no chance of winning against China if they have the most advanced AI capabilities and we don't. So,
and Nick, so I wanna go forward and then I wanna go back. Let's see. It's very clear, at least for me, that the Chinese space program is moving fast. Is
yep,
really we. It's not moving as fast as Elon Musk, but as a country, it's moving fast. That's we need
right.
to
As a whole,
understand
yeah, as a whole,
as a
that's
whole.
right.
They have a space station. The modules of the space station are done. They have swarms of drones doing
Yep.
all sorts of stuff in some type of, I'm not going to call it orbits. They have advanced AI capabilities like you've been sharing and kind of also, I'm going to say also warning people, be careful with what you put
Yeah.
out there in your servers.
Yep.
And they definitely have a moon mission. So,
Yep. And they also have a capability to go and catch satellites and potentially destroy them.
so Nick, what can we do? What can we do? Because to be fair, I've been into AFRL and AFWorks and a set of other workshops, and I think that those branches are like branches are trying to put things out there, but
yeah.
you've been inside the machine and now outside the machine. What can we do?
Well, I think that the first aspect is, what the difference of between China and what you see here is the silos, right? They don't have any silos. They're mandating and forcing and creating kind of a very cohesive, implementation of their plan. You look at the U.S., between Department of State, Commerce, DoD, DHS, right? CISA, NSA. We don't share, we don't even have an understanding of what the other agencies are doing, what the plan is. There's no coordination. It's the same with the engagements with public private sector. It's very clear in China that you don't have a choice but to work with the government, otherwise you're gonna see trouble. And I'm not saying we should go there, right? But the fact is that's a pretty big advantage as a communist party, to be able to effectively control all the moving pieces. Meanwhile, of course, you have the U.S. not even realizing yet that we are actually at war with China and still very much giving them a bunch of commercial advantages. You look at taxes, you look at what it costs to bring a U.S. car to China versus bring a car from China to the U.S. It's just mind-boggling to me that we let that kind of stuff happen. And then you have things like TikTok, right, where China is effectively ingesting all of data, face prints, voice prints, and it's a weapon of misinformation and intelligence for the CCP. And yet we let that happen, and we're banning it from a government device, which is completely useless compared to banning it as a whole, by the way, which is what I've been advocating for. And meanwhile, our kids, right, get brainwashed with freaking TikTok dense videos, and they
Yeah,
do it on purpose. It's not an accident. People just don't realize how much smarter and advanced they are in these non-military tactics, and we dismiss it, and we just pretend not to see it. But when you look at life as a whole, the fact is, whether the kumbaya people likes it or not, it's the survival of the fittest. And when you take a step back, maybe you realize that maybe they do deserve to win if we don't freaking wake up. So that's only that's up to us to do something about it. But you mentioned SpaceX. Look, they did 60 launches, I think, last year, which was pretty
yeah,
amazing.
yeah.
And they're leading compared to everybody else. But if it's not a cohesive thing, and you still see NASA doing things in vacuums with very slow moving capabilities. They were the first one to laugh at SpaceX. When they talk about reusing rockets. Now, of course, we will be using Russian capabilities to send our people to the ISS without SpaceX. It's a disgrace we haven't got anywhere close to that, particularly with what you see now in Ukraine. So I think it's pretty mind-boggling to me that we are where we are as a allegedly the nation that's supposedly controlling the world, which we're not.
Mm. And Nick, so if I have I'll give you my case. I've started with this in a small space company after consulting Honeywell and Jaguar and all of those interesting large scale corporations. And we've been through the I'm going to call it through the gallows of winning a couple of NASA competitions for the design. I think it's a great way that NASA sources hundreds of ideas with a very low cost. No, they
right. Very low cost. Yeah,
very low cost. Now we need to build. You see what I mean? We need to build, but I'm going in the direction of okay. Our designs are on the web in certain applications. Okay, I do not use Jira. Okay, I want to talk to you about that because one of the biggest challenges of my career was Jira is amazing. I'm not, guys, if someone from Jira Atlassian is listening to this, I love the idea.
They heard me say worse than this. You're okay.
Okay, so I want to be clear. I don't have nothing against or for. I'm just saying my experience. And so coming from a very traditional business process management implementation, highly structured, access limited to a certain amount of people versus everyone can do whatever we want.
Right.
And the information is free for everyone in the company. I like the idea of, obviously, the idea of transparency and information radiators.
Yeah, there is a balance in everything. Yep.
But there was something weird on that from my like, anyone can access, and I think overall from the companies that I've seen and work, everyone can access log information, flight information. And that's, Nick, what I'm asking is, how do you see from the technical side, what can we do better to avoid that our technical designs are stored in a place where it could be attacked or could be, I'm going to say, outsourced without our permission, not to say.
Yeah.
And from your experience in your new phase, you are pretty open, correct? You've got the world of Nick is there. People go there and can have access to DevSecOps, can have access to maturity models. It's a world. So we'll talk about that next. But what is I would say your advice to new space startups or even existing ones on how are we going to manage our design and implementation process? Because we'll have vendors. Not everyone is like SpaceX, and I don't believe.
No, you can't build everything in house. So for
exactly
those guys, yeah.
That's where I'm going, Nick. How are we going to do this? Because I love the concept of. Again, I don't have anything with Blue Origin or the UL8, but I love the idea of a team that works in a distributed manner.
Distributed, yeah. So, well, not everyone can do everything. I mean, it costs so much money, right?
Yes.
And you look at DoD, we're in the exact same situation, right? With 300,000 companies providing services back to the government, and then you wonder how you can get secure. Well, probably you can't, right? But there's trade-offs. But the fact is, if you take a step back on this, one is, well, let's really embrace best of breed cybersecurity. Zero trust. All the principle around data centricity. I actually have a couple of YouTube videos on that on the YouTube channel. But if you take a step back on that too, right? What you're gonna realize is there's a balance on both sides, right? People see this kind of magical black box as the answer, but then we brought the F-35 device to Black Hat. And within 3 minutes, they had root access to the device, right? And it was supposed to be this kind of black box that no one else could, even understand, right? But again, putting your hand in the sand and thinking that obfuscation and black boxes are making you secure is actually probably more dangerous than being transparent and having real baked-in security. And so I think you want to think about both sides there. If you look at effectively the transparency aspect, I had to do a trade-off when I created the DoD DevSecOps reference design. I could have said, hey, we're going to keep it very close hold, and it's going to be very tough to access from industry standpoint. But then you obviously see two things, right? One is, well, you're not going to get any adoption from the commercial side because no one can see it. So you're not going to be very relevant and have dual use. And then on the other side, the DIB is going to have a tough time adopting it because now it's very difficult to get access to it and share it with their employees and customers. And they cannot reuse it with non-DoD customers. So by making it open source and widely open, well, yeah, you give access to that to China and Russia, just like, by the way, Tesla open source their patents. Yeah. But if you're going to be moving faster and be more efficient and bring more diversity of options, more companies, more talent, maybe the trade-off is actually better. That was my bet, is let's make it widely accessible. Let's have the DIB really adopt it and make it easy for them to use it and reuse it across their entire customer base, which, by the way, look at Lockheed, they took my stuff and they made it the default for all of Lockheed, even non-DoD work for the entire enterprise. That would have never happened if I had said, hey, this is a DoD only thing, and they couldn't share it and use it for their customers. So now it's a de facto best of breed. And oh, by the way, we got 7 nations adopting it. We got multiple banks and telcos and healthcare companies and automotive companies using it. Right. So now you're creating an ecosystem that actually feeds upon itself, gets better, gets bigger and stronger, more eyes on code, more security. Right. That's kind of the whole concept behind open source. I would argue you're more secure that way than building your own stuff in a vacuum in a black box that you think will not get hacked and gets hacked in 3 minutes at Black Hat. So that's kind of the way I think of it.
Okay. So as a founder, and I'll tell you where we are, because we have a ton of engineering challenges. A ton, no, some. Okay, if someone from my NASA friends are looking into this, or from the Lunar Surface Innovation Consortium, that's where people share their. It's kind of amazing me, because there is this group from the Johns Hopkins Physics Applied Lab where all the moon streams are there. How to navigate, how to do communications, how to do power. And everyone is trying to figure out what hardware will work in there and also what kind of software for communications. And I'm really concerned specifically of communications on the moon, because there is no way. And I like when you said the kumbaya persons, like, we are talking about spaces for all and all of that. But Nick, the moment there are wheels on the moon, and there is a set of Chinese rovers on the moon on specific locations, forget it. It will be gone.
Yeah, everything changed right there.
Everything. Yeah. So right now is, so what's the approach in terms of implementing a type of communication that will work on the moon? I believe the Space Force will definitely want something like that. There are strategic resources up there, but I'm focusing on communication and access to the areas. What would be your recommendations moving forward?
Well, I think what you want to be careful about is have the mentality of getting stuck in time with only proven existing legacy technologies. I think what you find is people are so afraid of innovation now that they are pretty much going back to what they've been using, for the last 20 years. And let's face it, that's not what we're going to need moving forward for the next 20 years. And so I think, the key is diversity of options, right? Having obviously multiple capabilities that can be redundant, edge capable, air gap capable, and disconnected, and then reconnect and be able to have low throughput, but also high bandwidth options to be able to send more volume of data. So you need all of it, right? So you can't just come up with a one size fits all half-baked solution. You need options. When we built actually the data fabric stack and the communication stack for the next generation of the joint all domain and control system for DoD, which is supposed to be this Internet of Things of systems and weapons to create all these kill chains and capabilities. while you're connecting a bunch of different things that can be disconnected air gap, they can be moving, and have limited space. From a backpack to a Humvee to a jet. You're gonna have the same constraints compounded with the complexity of being in space and on the moon and back on the ground here. One of the key capabilities I think we brought to life was the centralized orchestration of software, so you can at least have the same cyber. I will always go back to cyber because honestly, I think that's going to be a big challenge. Connecting things in a vacuum and hoping for the best is not the answer. If a China device can pretend to be an American device and get access to the network and start listening in and exfiltrating data, that's probably not a good outcome. Worse, what if it starts being able to control some of the devices that are remotely managed? So, I think it goes back to orchestration and DevSecOps and baked in security from the get-go, right? It's often an afterthought in most of the communication protocols that you see and technologies being used. People always go back to forgetting about security. And I think in this use case, that should be the foundational pillar that can be the common linkage between all these systems, from the ground standpoint back to the low orbit or different kind of edge capabilities, all the way to the moon and Mars and beyond. So I think again, you look at SpaceX, the fact that they said, hey, we're going to use open source Linux, we're not going to use real-time specific stuff, we're gonna patch Linux with real-time patch, which by the way they open sourced, and then by the way, we're going to use non-space hardware, so it's going to be cheaper, we're going to have a broader set of options and software and tools. It's going to be x86, so we can use pretty much any development tools, scanning tools, automation tools, runtime security tools, pretty much any capability out there that would be used on the cloud or something like that could be used on that stack as well. So that opens the door to options and diversity and modern capabilities, and which is why they can now have a full digital twin representation of their system. They can update the software the day before the launch, right? When you even down to an hour now before the launch. So and that gives them a massive amount of flexibility. And for the detractors saying, yeah, they had the issues and explosions and things, well, none of that was due to software. It was always hardware related. It's actually demonstrated that their velocity and the agility in software is actually enabling them to even exist as a business.
Yeah. They seem to be more of a knowledge factory, to be fair, and probably coming from the Tesla days, existing Tesla, because Tesla does model year changes every 2 hours. That's something
right.
Like, and so now imagine this: we are working on requirements. We're going to build our hardware and our communication protocols, and something very specific. I'll have a camera that will look into the lunar terrain and will understand what it is and will move my rover in a certain direction, collect mass, dig, change, and communicate back to. What is your recommendation? Because like me, I believe there are 12 more US companies doing that.
Yeah.
Where do we start? Do we go to the world of Nick and get trained there? Do we go to, because the other option could be we go to Lockheed Martin and say, let's do a partnership, but or Lockheed Martin or any others, like where these guys potentially have everything. But I kind of feel that it could be wrong, that we will face like, oh, you guys want to do this way. I felt that in other interactions.
Yeah, they're going to be opinionated. Well, I think what you're going to find is, first you need diversity of options. So the DIB is a very small bubble. We have two bubbles, right, in the US. We have the Kumbaya bubble in Silicon Valley, okay, and then we have the complacency bubble in the DoD and the defense industrial base. Ideally, we pop both and try to find a mix there to make something that actually makes sense. But back to your point, you want to try to bring the defense industrial base with us, because quite honestly, we're not going to succeed as a country if we leave them standing behind. And there is definitely a pocket of goodness in every DIB companies, from the Northrop to the Lockheed to whatever, right? But it's pockets, and it's a small piece of the company. We want to make that the majority of the company. We want to make them more innovative, more able to move at the pace of relevance. So I think it goes back to DevSecOps, right? Because if you're trying to build software and things with the wrong foundation, you don't have open architecture, right? You don't have DevSecOps. You don't have modeling and simulation and digital twin capabilities to know exactly how the system is going to behave before even bending metal. All these things are essential to doing business nowadays. You used to be able to get away with it, but now that you have competitors that do that for a living, you just have no chance in hell to compete if you don't have that as a foundation of business. So I would say, well, sure, you can go to Learn with Nick and go to our YouTube channel, and you're going to find videos on digital twin. You're going to find videos on all the stuff we just talked about and why it matters, why it's important. By the way, it's not only for the tech guys, but also for the management, because again, if the managers were able to understand this better, I think they would make that a central piece of the business. As an investor myself, if I were to invest in a company, I can tell you, of course, you look at the people and the product, but I can tell you it's actually more important to look at their DevSecOps maturity, because they're going to have to reinvent themselves. They're going to have to keep up. They're going to have to innovate. They're going to have to enable that fast pace of delivery, incremental delivery of value in production. And if you build stuff in vacuums, you don't have the ability to release software multiple times a day, and you don't have a DevSecOps metrics that are up to par to top software companies. Because let's face it, whether people like it or not, people still see space as hardware companies. But the fact is, the bulk of the future of space innovation will be on the software side. And so this is just like Tesla. Tesla is not a car company. It's exactly. an AI compute and software company, right? So it's the same concept here, right? If you still think of the hardware as a central piece of your business, you fail to realize that the next generation innovation you need to bring, and the current actually 2023 set of capabilities you need to deliver, will be mostly driven through automation of your software capabilities and your ability to deliver software with baked-in security and feedback from your end users in a rapid fashion. So, you always go back to these key principles. And so that's where you have to start. You want to start having that foundation. And I can tell you, we have a video on why Kubernetes and containers is a must, even if you think it's overkill, right? And that video is just, I get a lot of pushback on it. But I can tell you, people that push back on it are the people that are part of the problem. They just don't have the maturity yet to understand the problem. They're still very much narrow-minded. They forget about cyber. They forget about velocity. They forget about cohesive orchestration and scale. And, it's so essential to enable teams to focus on their mission software instead of building all the enablement layers of, infrastructure and platform layers and cyber layers, so they can focus on building software innovation. So all these stuff, I say, go start with, maybe we have 50, 54, 55 videos on YouTube. It's going to take you 6 hours of time. I think that's going to be very well spent. You're going to learn a lot of stuff. But then it's also about, how do you invest in yourself? How do you learn every day? I tell people, you have to invest an hour a day into your learning. And people don't do it. They would rather spend time scrolling TikTok videos.
Nick, do you have, I believe you have it in your head, after you spoke about two things. Is one, you had to find your grit.
Right.
You have to find your grit. And now that you found it, you topped out the number of people that LinkedIn allows you to have. So and you are doing a second thing, that is, I am as worthy as my email list, or something like that. Because the moment LinkedIn closes the door, come on.
Yeah, we're very dependent on the social media companies. Yeah, that's for sure.
But you have a maturity model, and the word could not be this one, but what I'm going at this is the following. I know a couple of VCs or people that
Yep.
invest, and most of the pitch decks, there is no Nick, there is no reference or very few reference to DevSecOps, cybersecurity.
Yep.
What is the team looking into? The question is always, do you have, very basic, correct? Do you have an MOU, a memorandum of understanding, or a letter with someone? Is your
Right.
product working? I was like, is that really the case right
That's stuck
now?
in time. That's a very stuck in time mentality for investors to look at the day zero state, and they, I mean, look, it's still good indicators, right? I'm not saying you have to ignore it, but you have to look at yeah, the ability to innovate and learn and reinvent yourself, because IT velocity is now, down to, I would say, 2 years, maybe a year, where your stack is obsolete. You have to rewrite stuff. You have to reinvent yourself. If you can't do that as a person, and worse as a company, you're out of business.
Okay, so Nick, how did you reinvent yourself? I really want to, because that's kind of you walk. I imagine I saw your all of the references. Like, it's brutal, of course, and like when you were 15, you were an entrepreneur. Man, come on, it's like
Well, I think the key to do that is to be passionate about the work, right? Because we've seen a lot of people in IT, start to take those roles because of money, right? They were excited about the good pay, which is fine, right? But what you're going to find is, they should probably have been doctors or lawyers, right? Because that, um, you know, those jobs don't evolve and change with the same velocity as we see in IT. If you're not passionate about IT and you have to reinvent yourself every 2 years entirely, meaning, you're starting to get good at something, you get some expertise going, and now you have to start back from zero because there's this new thing coming out and you have to completely uh, look at starting back from zero. I'm actually working now on the GPT, the AI capability, and we're bringing some pretty cool stuff. By the way, we're going to announce in a couple of weeks. But and by the way, the stuff you can do with it is, people don't even comprehend that 90% of the jobs they do now will be replaced by robots. Even
yeah.
developers, I literally make it write my code for me and convert, from Python to Go to whatever. I mean, it's just mind-boggling. But anyway, um, and what you're going to find is, if you have the passion, you're going to be able to do that. And if you don't have it, whether it's complacency, whether you don't just really like it, it's just a job, I think you can do it for a few years, but it's going to get old pretty quick. And you're going to find that's why you see people, retiring young, or at least moving to different jobs. They were never really passionate about IT. And for me, when I started, I did my first game at 12, 15. I created my company, and grew it to 450 people in 12 countries, right? Did 12 companies, 187 products, right, in 22 years. Well, if you like the stuff and it's a passion, it's not work, right? You just want to do the stuff,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that's the difference, right?
Okay, okay. So I see you are, yeah. In fact, I've tried ChatGPT, to be fair, to optimize and put my social LinkedIn media. And Nick, with 1 hour of work, 1 hour, I've done 2 weeks of space-related content. That was
Yep.
okay. I'm saying okayish. You still need to review it.
Yep.
And I had very few human intervention, but I was like, this is about to change. This, and I didn't even touch code. I just said, okay, I automated the Control C, Control V.
Yep. Yep. Pretty much. I can
That's
say all the writing, all that kind of stuff will be, and even image generation. The robot created a logo for my new app I'm going to launch, and I asked it, hey, design a logo with this thing and this thing, and it just created a logo for me.
so even today, the picture that we have in the for the session, I asked this with I can tell you later what did I wrote about you, and it
Yep.
generated that image that is a conversation in space between Nick, Nick the provider of the provider of DevSecOps inspired with Matisse. That's just like,
Yeah.
and that thing come out like, oh, okay, this looks like that.
Oh, you could ask it. You could give him enough context and ask it what questions you should ask me today, and it would do a better job than us. So
yeah,
do
exactly.
my answers for me.
Nick, I
don't know if you've seen. I just posted a video on YouTube about GPT, and I actually I waited till the end of the video to tell people that the whole script I was reading was actually created by the robot. So I told them I was just a pretty face. That's what I am, a pretty face.
Very soon, and I've been investing on creating avatars using my face or face of others and developing content, but it just seems, I'm gonna say, scary in the beginning.
Yeah.
But with the fact is, like, the awareness of that because of deep fakes, to be fair, and the ability to generate content that is potentially correct. Although in the moon environment, and it's not there yet, I've asked ChatGPT to give me 7 strategies to allow survival on the moon environment, and he came up with one of them that was utilize water to cool down the machinery. I was like, come on, but it's now correct. It's
but you have to realize also, like, the stuff I'm going to announce in a few weeks. I'm going to give you a little hint there, and a kind of breaking news. But I'm teaching it, right, additional context, including ingesting, all my content, but also all the DoD policies, all the acquisition strategies, all, a bunch of additional stuff, right? It's going to become so then you're going to get much better answers. We could use this for acquisition in DoD. You want to bid on RFPs, you're going to be able to see the bids in real time. And you want to innovate and see, hey, is there a cyber that already did something like this, so I don't work in a vacuum? You're going to be able to see all the cyber data, and you can say, hey, is there already a product that does X, Y, and Z? And he's going to tell you, yeah, there's this company, this. So it's going to be, the more you train, the complexity we had to build this is all the how to keep the existing data they have, which is pretty good, right? It's a little bit biased, let's face it. It's a little bit leaning left a little bit, but that's okay. I like to be more, central. But I would teaching it like, DoD policy content and like it, tech, like all the tech stuff. And it's just the difference when you ask a question is just mind-boggling already.
So do you, man, what do you see what do you see the jobs will be? And I'm saying this because I've done business process improvement many years of my life, and I'm pretty clear that the heuristics in ChatGPT, in very soon they will tell you the improvement is over there. Do this, do that. And my job in that area is gone. Although there is a whole area of consultants in Lean and Six Sigma and all of that.
Right.
And I was discussing this with my wife, is where are we going, man? Is it more of the relationship side that we'll be making sure? Is it caring about our creativity? Because when I started to outsource my creative process, the outcomes are not the same, correct?
Right.
There is this manifestation of things that appear in the humankind that it's not a repetition from the existing 2021. It's got hundreds of years of archetypes before.
Yep.
So what would be your advice for the retooling? And we have a question on YouTube on LinkedIn. What is your view for the retooling? Because we can swim the wave of ChatGPT, but I don't think that's enough. To be fair, it's what's the conceptual framework?
That's the starting point. Yeah.
So what's your?
So there are a couple of things, right? First, by the way, GPT-4 is coming and it's gonna be crazy. Okay. So one is that's gonna be exponentially crazier. At first, you're gonna get away by using if you're not too dumb. you're gonna get away by using GPT yourself to automate your work, and your employer is not gonna really know, and you're gonna be fine maybe for a couple of years that way until they realize, wait a minute, we can actually do that, and we don't need the guy. And right now, for example, I'm pushing a lot of content into GPT. I told you about DoD, but I also send all my content, all my life. I'm sending all the products I created, and I can ask it, okay, what should I do next? What product could I do next? And so the more he understands who I am, then he can act like me and answer questions like me. It's kind of crazy. So effectively cloning myself, right? And providing automation there and give it access to my customers and my companies, so they can ask me questions without asking me the question. Which is scary. The results we're getting now, I would say, is probably 90% you wouldn't know it's not me answering. 10% there's some stuff like, okay, that can tell you it's a bot, and maybe 5% is like, okay, that's kind of wrong, whatever. But when you have a 95% success, it's pretty good. And you multiply yourself. No, you're not servicing one company. You're servicing 2,000. So you at first you could ride that wave and make a ton of money. At some point, companies are going to get smarter, although they still need that knowledge, and so they still that learning. And so how do they collect it? Unless you give it to them, right? And then of course I can tell you, you talk to Elon Musk, he's going to tell you that we think 80% of the jobs within 10 years would be mostly automated by AI. Obviously, taxi drivers and things like that. But even I can tell you, lawyers, accountants, the bulk of the work can be automated. It's going to take a while for the industry to ingest that automation and get used to it.
Okay.
But it's going to be there.
So I think Ray Dalio.
Mm-hmm.
If you've read his book or have seen his work, I think from reading and the success of Bridgewater in the last many years, and he did exactly what you are talking about, the same process. He ingested himself and all of the principles inside large scale system dynamics. Sorry about the word, but it's an overall systemic tool that understands relationships and the first and second wave, and
right.
And that's why they have success, because they had a machine that would advise them on what have you done before 10 years ago, and those operations were done. But that thing was only available here's the fun part, for that type of infrastructure, large scale bankers. What you're saying now is everyone can do that and become.
Everyone can do that. That's the big, the democratization of the technology is going to make it available to everybody. And the cost, even with the training we've done, I think I paid $18. It's just ridiculous. My bet is I'm going to spend, maybe $1,000 a month on the training long term, and we're talking like terabyte of data. So it's just it's just, and the scale you're getting, it's just going to be very tough, and so people will have to keep heading to the most innovative technologies to keep up, which, by the way, means that if you're not passionate about learning and you don't reinvent yourself faster, then the sooner you're going to become obsolete, and the sooner your job is going to disappear. It's going to be an exhausting thing. That's why people like Zuckerberg, who I don't particularly like, by the way, but the fact is, his take on this is to say, we're going to have no jobs, so let's create a metaverse. We're going to have a virtual life and be happy in a virtual environment, because clearly this guy is never happy in real life anyways. And that's going to be the future. We're going to be all virtual, and we're going to buy virtual things and have a virtual life, and that's the world we headed. He may have a point there, because the fact is, the bulk of the world will be out of a job. What do we do?
So I have one technical question. That is, I believe the if you don't know, the DAOs, are decentralized autonomous communities. They are the ones that focus on a type of relationship that is, I don't understand if it is left or right, but it's not even a meritocracy. it's something. It's an occurring, an emergent event.
Hmm.
Uh, they do have the ability to uh, raise funds, in this case, cryptocurrency or whatever, some types of funds, but they also have the ability to raise or to utilize knowledge from many sources around the world to solve problems.
Hmm.
Like, and I've been thinking that some of this on the standards for open innovation and open work, and how can that help companies? I'm talking about in the US that have specific engineering problems. Let's say that we need to make a trade study, and I don't have the enough expertise in my house. It does have a slight problem or potential problem, that is, oh man, if I share my information, how do I make sure it's not taken by
Right.
bad
Bad
um,
actors. Yep.
bad actors? But on the other hand, I have access to to a huge amount of intelligent, a huge amount of potential huge amount of intelligence. So what would be your advice? And that we don't have Pablo today in here. He's from Mundao, the guys that put an astronaut, well, an almost, I'm going to say an almost astronaut up there, but they are trying to do a moon settlement, whatever that, how that will go. They are still working on that, but they have these decentralized communities with many guilds, many working features, a bit like Nick. Think about a bazaar, like a large scale, the Grand Bazaar in Turkey, like hundreds
Right.
of or thousands of shops that sell exactly the same thing. And you would say, these guys are going to go broke. No, they don't, because they
Right.
help each other in the way they compete, but they help each
The
other.
balance. Yeah.
They balance each other. This is what I mean. So, and I've been there, and only being there is that you understand that eagerness to sell, but serve, but at the same time maintain the game. And this is kind of
Yep.
what humans have been doing for many years. Like, we maintain the
Right.
game. If there is a too much dominant player, at a certain moment, he will be taken down. But if there are many of them working together, overall it raises. So how do you see these DAOs that could be anywhere and helping out strategic assets in the US and helping out both in cybersecurity or physical product development? How what would be your advice, Nick, to engage with this?
Well, first, I think it's you're right. It's a balanced system, but it's also stable as long as you don't disrupt it too much, right? I think there's if tomorrow there's 500 new shops opening in the same spot, selling the same stuff overnight, I think the balance would not be there, and it would implode. So I think the issue is this stuff doesn't do very well with disruption, a big disruption, and honestly, if you go back to the space market here with AI technologies and all these kind of automation, that's a prime disruptor that's going to change the landscape. And you may still have an expertise, right? And so I think you have two train of thoughts, right? You have companies that are going to be pretty vast in their advisory services and do a little bit of everything, and not really good, really deep, but be able to provide a broad set of advice. And then you're going to have companies that are very specialized into one thing, which is a bet, of course, because if you pick the wrong thing, you're in trouble. um, and if that one thing is disrupted by somebody else, you lose everything. It's just like developers, right? Nowadays, people argue you want to be a full stack developer, do a little bit of everything, and that way you can do anything you want to do, which is true. But at the same time, you also have very specialized developers that you look at AIML. They have very specialized teams, and those will probably have a job pretty longer now that the full stack developer, because guess what? GPT can actually completely automate most of what a full stack developer would do. In fact, if you go on GPT now and you tell him to create a Python Flask website with a
Yes,
UI in the back end, it can give you the code, and you're good to
it's
go. And like I said, even create your logo and all that. So even like basic design, with Dali, can create a complete design. You can tell it, what color schemes you like, and it's going to do that for you. So it's going to be a broader disruption that can completely change the landscape of what we know. There's no simple answer. I think no one really knows. I like to tell you, hey, pick one market that you think is gonna be further away from automation. But the fact is, when you start digging, the reality is most of what we do can be automated. And that's why you go back to Zuckerberg saying 80% of the jobs will be automated, which means 80% of the world will not be working, which means what do they do? Oh, that's a problem. They can all be at the beach not making money, and and who is paying for the stuff, and how is money even is there gonna be money anymore? If in a world where you don't have to work, do we just get that's why people go to the crazy communist and socialist agenda, where people get a check every month and do nothing all day, and we become sheep, and completely locked into the government decisions. But anyway, it's going to be tough. And I can tell you, my take in space, for example, right now, if I have to bet, you have way too many companies in space dedicated to hardware, and very little companies understanding software.
Okay.
You have very little space companies that can provide. If I were to create a company, I would probably create a company that would do DevSecOps services, platform as a service, both on the ground and on the edge satellite solution, as a turnkey solution so companies can focus on building their mission software and not have to build all the security and orchestration and disaster recovery and automation stack to be able to run their software. Which you look at SpaceX, it's the DevSecOps teams is huge. I have friends that left SpaceX and they go to another company, and now they're like 10 people for software, and they're like, wait, I used to have 100 people to just do my DevSecOps stuff. Now I don't have anybody. Well, yeah. By the way, it's a pretty big lift. If you look at Platform 1 in the Air Force Space Force, is 250 people. So how do you orchestrate that, and how do you start from scratch? What do you reuse? So that's why I help a lot of companies that do provide this as a service and as a turnkey push button deployment, so that you can focus, instead of building all these enabling layers, you can focus on building your actual mission software. Which, by the way, most people don't even realize yet how important software is going to be to their mission. They still think hardware. And they, if you look at the AI ML capabilities, you were talking about recognition of objects on Mars or on the moon. That is a prime example of something that by definition must be having some GPU on board and be able to use the most advanced technology, not just the basic stuff we've been using for years on the rovers, but the really, top advanced image and video detection capabilities.
Yeah. There is the clear need from the data that we have, from the environmental data that we have, to be able to, through an intelligent system or mechanism or software, to utilize our hardware. There are many ways. And
by the way, the other thing is, you want to think modularity, and you want to think even on the hardware side, having the ability to swap hardware, swap GPUs, swap compute, right? People still think these, space devices will be stuck in time forever. My take is, you're going to see now robots that are going to be able to pull, just like you're going to be able to charge, you're going to have charging stations in space. I wouldn't be surprised if you have like racks or like, little edge device that can be swapped, either by human or by automation robots, to bring modular, so Lego blocks, everything from your software standpoint for sure, but even for your hardware must be Lego blocks driven.
Yeah, we are with that similar problem as we are building our rover. We have I've got a good background on automotive, so everything in there is kind of Lego blocked. You have a chassis and then the wheel, but overall, it's not how things have been developed. Nick, where can people find you if this is not evident, that they can go to the world of Nick? And a bit of a challenge in there that I'd like to raise, or probably already have your Nick on ChatGPT working on this challenge. That is there a set of roadmaps, or I'm going to call it, development work, that people can go in there and say, I'm on this pathway. Okay, so when you walk into the world of Nick, they can go into many rooms, or do you have that thought that is depending on what's your status, or you just go and hang around in there? But I would really love to be able to say, here, I know these 2 or 3 new space companies, guys, go there, take this training because we'll need it for this type of thing. And
Yeah.
go to, you see, Nick, go to this sequence, because sequence is still good, like having an order to do things in order that the knowledge builds up. It's so
Oh yeah.
so
Well,
what
so to find me, LinkedIn, Nicolas Chillon, you're gonna find me there. YouTube, same thing, youtube.com/Nicolas Chillon. You're gonna find all our videos. You with Learn with Nick on learnwithnick.com, which is also on YouTube. You have 55 videos plus. We release a new video every week, by the way. So you're gonna find a ton of cool stuff. And then you talk about Cloud Native Town, right? So if you go on cloudnative.town, that's the domain, cloudnative.town. You have this virtual, and that's not for mobile, by the way, that's desktop, laptop. You go into this virtual universe with different rooms. You talk about the rooms, different themes. We want to create more rooms, by the way. So if companies, hey, you want to have a dedicated room about space or, whatever, right? We can do that. So just reach out to us, no cost, completely free. You want to create these communities, these engagement. It's kind of a video chat plus video playing plus games. It's a lot of fun. We're going to bring, the GPT chat to this. So now you're learning, you get stuck, you have questions, you can ask questions, and get unstuck. We have a lot of content already. And then we have the show in the nick of time every Tuesday, 1 p.m. Eastern, where people can come and listen to our guests. We have amazing guests every week about tech, cyber, DoD stuff, space stuff. So that's always fun too.
Okay, Nick. I will share this more in my posts moving, I would say, next week, and also the conversation that we had. And as I find more resources needed, I will definitely send them to you. I'm very interested on knowing how you are cloning yourself, man. I think if you can do a video on that, if you can say, this is how
we will make a video. We're literally doing it now and kind of looking at all the complexity and the pain point. But honestly, it's easier than it should be, and that scares me because it's I'm not the dumbest guy on the planet for sure, but I really did it very quickly and with very little investment, and so that tells you that that's going to be widely accessible and that's going to be very quickly democratized across industry. And that's going to be a massive disruptor, way more than people just dismiss it, just like dismiss self-driving, with automotive. I think it's, when you get in a Tesla and you push the button, from A to Z and he drives you there. I used to go to Pentagon every day and for 3 years, I never touched the wheel. That should tell you, 2 hours each way. That's 150 miles a day, 4 times a week. Never had to take over the car once. If that's not already, a game changer, then, people need to wake up.
Yeah. In a much smaller example, many years ago, I bought my wife one of these, okay? Big phone, big screen. She had an iPhone 4, the small one. When I go get home with a big phone, she says, "No way! I don't want that. It's too big. It doesn't work. It doesn't fit. My friends don't have one of that. It's not good." And I'm like, although it was big, okay. And at that time, I decided to to buy one that had the largest possible memory. The physical memory was a thing back then.
Right.
2 weeks after, Nick, the
She loved
camera.
it.
She said, "No way, I'm going to go back because
Going back, yeah.
the camera is better."
There's always an adjusting time, right? It always takes a few days.
So this is a small disruption within inside the house, but what I'm seeing, and with my son as well, is 15, and his assignment on the Holocaust. There is a chair called the Holocaust and War, and the school blocked ChatGPT, but I was like,
Yeah, they did.
What are you
Although,
guys doing?
they're stupid, because if you go to ChatGPT and say, hey, create a proxy to ChatGPT, then it's going to write the code for you to host a proxy, and they're not going to be able to block that. So that's not going to scale very far.
And essentially, his solution was, we have 2 laptops at home, correct?
Yeah, exactly. You can use that at home. But tell him to go. Although, you still have to do the work, because at some point you need
No,
to. But I'm not saying just stop studying and stuff. But at the very least, tell him to go on ChatGPT and type how to create a proxy of ChatGPT, so I can use it while at school, and it's gonna be mind-boggling. So
yeah, that's happening. What I don't that's happening, and they are moving way faster with this. So I we'll go into your channel, we'll go into your town. I'm really looking forward for the release, man.
when
Hook
you
me
see
up.
the bar, it's gonna be so exciting.
I'm really excited to see the first person that I know that is doing brain transfer on the cloud. Wow, Nick,
Yeah, it's gonna be fun.
that will be fun. Nick, thank you very much. I'll put the links
Thanks
in
for having
here.
me.
Thanks for this. It was really, really great. I'll pick up the knowledge from here and move it forward. I'm really interested in DevSecOps and the work that you are doing.
Thank
Thanks, Nick.
you. You stay safe.
Thanks.
Happy New Year again. Bye bye.
Happy New Year. Thanks.